All right. Yeah. So I'm Trevor Harlow, of course. I'm from the University of Nebraska, Omaha. This summer, I spent my time in Red Cloud, Nebraska.
And I'm Trenton Burr. I'm a senior at the University of Nebraska-Lincoln, and I was also in Red Cloud. And a little bit before we start into it about Red Cloud is that it's a town of about 1,000 people in southern Webster County. It's about 45 minutes from Hastings, so it's pretty secluded. And it's on the intersection of Highway 136 and 281.
All right. So when we came to Red Cloud, our biggest mission and the biggest task we were presented with was the economic development plan, which initially was meant to be paired with passing LBA 40 in the community. That ended up hitting some bumps along the way and kind of got shifted and changed as we were there. But the core idea of coming up with a plan to help direct development and economic development within the community still stuck with the entire 10 weeks. And was the biggest project we had. Kind of the biggest thing that was about is just learning what the community is, what it has to offer, its amenities, its benefits, the things it needs to grow with, and the solutions to its problems that can be solved with what's currently there and what we can bring in and develop within that community. So once we kind of got our footing and a hold on Red Cloud and we started to learn more about it, see the things, meet the people, know what's happening in that area, we were able to start identifying the problems and the solutions to those problems so we can make this plan and put it together and present it back to the community.
We'll talk a lot more about the economic development plan later because that was the majority of our time there. But some of these other things that we did, so for example, heritage tourism. So the person we work with the most, his main job was working on tourism, and Red Cloud really prides themselves on tourism, and so they're the home of Willa Cather, which is humongous there. It's their second biggest industry behind agriculture. I mean, it's a really big thing. They've got a lot of other major historical things that have happened there in the past. So our mentor's job is trying to expand on that and capitalize on that. And so we also took part in that in a few different ways. So, for example, we made some itineraries for people who would come visit Red Cloud, and those will be on the website in the future. So that was kind of cool. And then also came to fruition in event facilitation. So we helped out with the Willa Cather Conference, which is a pretty big event, and that was in our second weekend there actually, which was pretty crazy. And there was about 200 people that came to town from all over the world. So there was dinners, speakers, all kinds of stuff that we were wrapped up in, and it was kind of a whole different world. And there's a lot of other events. So the bike ride across Nebraska came to town. I know it came to a couple other communities too. We actually won the best host community, so that was pretty sweet. So that took up a lot of time too because 400 people coming to town, the businesses were packed full, especially for a town of our size. It was a ton of people. I mean, they filled the entire park. That was really cool to see. We helped out at the welcome booth. We gave some tours around the city and some sites around the community. So that was pretty cool. And we also worked a little bit on housing rehabilitation. So we'll touch on housing again later in the economic development plan. But we did do some actual hands-on work. So there's a picture of Trevor up there going hard, scraping some paint. So spent a few really fun hot days outside doing work on houses.
All right. So like we were mentioning, the economic development plan is definitely the biggest task we had there and was the main thing we were doing. So you can see here on the screen, that's the cover of the plan we gave to them. And it's supposed to be a fiscal year 10-year plan. So it'll go through 2028 as long as they approve it for this coming year. And it ended up being about a 26 page document after our appendix. So it's pretty good. A lot of stuff in there. So that was really our main focus and the main thing we were building. The 4 target areas we have for it were housing, business development, quality of life, and tourism. So what that means is those were the 4 areas that we identified as things that have the best potential for growth and are in the biggest need of growth. And we kind of went through the plan in that order where housing is the biggest thing they need to improve upon with the most potential problems but potential solutions, and kind of went from there. And then we divided each of those 4 target areas down to subsections that then had individual action steps that the community can take and follow with to get the best outcome at the end of the 10-year plan. So that's kind of how we broke down with that plan. And like we were mentioning a little bit at the beginning, it was originally meant to be paired with LB 840, which if you don't know, it's a sales and use tax increase you can pass locally to then use that revenue from that sales tax increase to support economic development. It ended up falling through with just some ways about how the law works there. So we ended up having to kind of find a different way to get that money. So that ended up being LB 357, which is kind of now going to be an ongoing thing that the community works on.
I think a lot of the things that go unsaid in making this plan is how much work goes in behind it. So yeah, there's this document with all these suggestions that we give, but in reality, it took weeks of meeting with people, calling people to really understand the community and the potential solutions out there. So, I mean, we spent the first 3 weeks in a meeting almost the entire day, every day, because all the different organizations in town, we had to understand what their functions were, who we were working with, what they wanted to achieve. And then we had to talk with other people, outside sources like the Nebraska Department of Economic Development or the South Central Economic Development District, and and find out what sort of solutions can we actually implement in here with the resources we have. And that took a significant amount of time. And on this document, it doesn't really show very well how much work goes into this kind of plan.
Yeah, so just kind of talking a little bit about outcomes that we saw with it and want to see with the plan for both the community and ourselves. So for the community, the biggest thing that we felt we could bring with it was just a direction. We brought this kind of external insight into the community and trying to give them a direction to follow. Obviously, it is just a plan and it's not necessarily doing something, but it's giving them a way to do something. So really bringing in that enthusiasm and insight into a community that to a certain extent, in a lot of areas, has hit a stagnant where they're not sure how they're supposed to advance. This was really a way to give them that direction and something that they can actually follow and look at when they're making advancements. And it kind of will show them their performance measures and things like that, so they know how they're improving and in what way they're improving. So that having that concise action plan is really important for them. It really brings, and like it says right there, it really just brings enthusiasm and insight and a direction for them to follow.
A lot of times we kept hearing when we were there, we're glad we finally have someone here to do this work that we've wanted to do for so long. And I think that really highlights how little workforce there is in rural areas and how much of a problem that is, because they have ideas, there's things they want to do, but they have jobs, they have families, they have things they need to do, and they don't have the time to learn about economic development and what it takes to get there. That's just not their expertise. And so I think really, it was really important for us to come here and be that kind of expertise and take the time to understand those things that they don't have time for so that we can give them the direction. Because, they have all these ideas. It was really just how can we get them into a concise plan and tell them, these are what you need to do to move forward with these plans was really a big part of it.
And then just from our own side, we got to do a lot for them, but also we just gained a lot through it. Being able to do this on our own and do it in our own way gave us a lot of experience and really helped us build on our own passions, because both of us in our own way were really passionate about this type of stuff. So it was really great for us to grow with it and kind of gain that initial exposure and experience to that side of the world and just kind of grow on our own passion for it.
I think it was a lot of really learning and understanding a rural community. So for me, I had grown up in a small town, but it was so close to Lincoln that there wasn't really any actual community there beyond living there, which was kind of sad. But here, there was real energy. And so it took a lot of time to understand how things work, whether it be business leaders, the different organizations, volunteer groups, the school, how that all functioned together. I didn't really understand what it meant in an actual rural community and how important it is. And honestly, as I move forward, it's going to be really useful because I know what it takes, and so I can look for those key players wherever I end up, and that's going to be really, really important. Especially for me, who I want to live in a rural community very similar to this. So this experience is, I want to take part in the things that I was doing this summer. So that's pretty darn inspiring.
All right. So just kind of what happens now. Once again, for us, like we were both saying, it really gives us that career inspirations and aspirations, as well as like Trenton was saying, that insight into how these communities work, which obviously for him is really awesome and really important. So it really helps us a lot there that way, helps with growth, helps us with insight, and really helps us build our passion. So that's a lot more like long-term stuff. For Red Cloud, obviously the future is following this plan and there's a lot in the plan that they're going to be implementing and trying to do in the next coming years. But as we were leaving, we just wanted to kind of give them the first initial most important next steps that weren't exactly directly covered by the plan. So the first one we said was hiring a city administrator, which we all agreed and a lot of members agreed is very important, because like Trenton was saying earlier, their workforce is really small for people to do this type of stuff. So it's important to have someone in the community who's dedicated to not only implementing and delegating a plan like this, but also is just there to be someone in the community that's managing it, helps administer it, does all that kind of stuff. So that's super important, and that's something we hope we see the community do in these next couple of years, or this next year even. And then other than that, also preparing for LB 357, which like we were saying, that's the avenue they're gonna go instead of LB 840. They may still pass LB 840 later and just reallocate money, but 357 still allows for a sales tax increase, but it requires that it goes for infrastructure. There's a couple other requirements there that we're trying to work out and figure out, but this ended up being in like our last 1 or 2 weeks there, so we didn't have a lot of time to work with it, but hopefully that's something we've given them direction on. They can see how they can do it, so they can at least get that money for infrastructure, because that will help them a lot. We did mention in our plan how big of a deal it is to improve and grow upon that, but hopefully that can help them there and still help them give them some direction. And also just with that, of course, delegating the plan and carrying that out is a big part of their future to come.
We really tried to do things that would help the community move forward with our plan and not just let it sit there stagnantly. And I think this has been kind of reverberated by other people who presented today, is how can we continue the work we've done later on? And this community's had problems with that in the past too. So we tried to do things that would help them move forward. For example, we made, for each individual committee and board within the town, we made documents that said, these are the steps you should take to move forward with this plan. And when Trevor made some resolutions for the city council that are ready-made, ready to go, you just present them. They don't have to work with any of the legal stuff. We made a grant database so that they have access and due dates about all these different grants, because that's another, they don't have expertise in that. It's another problem that they have. And that's really key for us, because we don't want this work to just go down the drain, and they don't either. That would be a waste for them as well. And in terms of, so moving forward into us and how this impacted us, I've already spoken a little bit about me, because I want to work in a place similar to this, but I also want to have a legal career. So this unique place, this community, was special because we were working with LB 840, which no other community was, and to me that's unique because it's a special law that allows communities to develop, and I'm really interested in how the legal system can affect development in rural communities. So beyond like LB 840 and 357, I also learned, how do all these different committees and boards interact with the law, and what can they do under the law? And those are really important for me, because when I have a legal education, now I understand how the law impacts rural communities in these ways. Anything else, Trevor?
Oh,
Trevor, you back?
Okay. Can you turn the next slide?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So just going at the end, kind of reiterating here a lot, we kind of already covered this stuff, but just the legacy we hope to see is really just Red Cloud retains this energy and this enthusiasm, and they can see these changes that they can hope for in the future that we kind of gave them and helped work with them to get, and then just see that impact from those changes. So it's kind of carrying that all through and growing with it. But the biggest thing is just for them to have that impact and that enthusiasm that there is a way for them to go forward, and there is actual tangible changes they can make and they can see that will get them moving forward into the future.
All right. Well, thank you guys for sending us out there and having us here today. We really appreciate that. Is there any questions for us right now?
Great job. I will tell you that it was one of the highlights of our trips was coming to Red Cloud. And I don't know if it was because we weren't backing it up with going to a different city so we could just focus on Red Cloud, but I really think it was because of the two of you and the way that you shared the community and your lead mentor shared about your involvement in the community. So great job, gentlemen. Thank you so much for what you shared today. Questions?
Thank you.
Okay, you've been listening to a lot of these presentations, and I know you've learned a lot this summer. What themes are you seeing through this in these presentations and what you learned that would help the university be more informed about rural communities?
I was particularly concerned with the resource gap, in like fully understanding how little workforce there is. So, and for us, and I think for a lot of other places, a lot of the people working on things were volunteers. And I think we had a lot of trouble convincing them that they had the time and the energy to keep doing more things because they were already they were doing so much. So it was, us coming in meant we have more on our plate to deal with, and for them that was really, really hard. And I think that may be reflected in a couple other groups, but.
Yeah, I would definitely agree. Our resource gap it was really hard to overcome that as a community, and just them seeing about, especially over the past years, they've really seen as Red Cloud has lost population and has lost like businesses and have lost all kinds of stuff to just people wanting to go more urbanized. So that's a really hard thing for the community, but definitely, like I said at the end there, just keeping that enthusiasm and direction for moving forward is so important, because something we just see with a lot of the people in the community is that they think there's no way to overcome something like that. There's no way for them to continue developing when they're this small, when it's more profitable and it's better for businesses to go elsewhere. Just showing them they can still develop and they can keep becoming better and better is just so important, and that's something I just really hope they carry on and keep moving forward with.
I know we're about out of time, but real quick, I'm just so impressed with the plan that you developed and left behind for this community. What was key to your preparation to be able to, you didn't just learn that on the fly. What prepared you to be able to do that in the time frame you had to work with?
No, for sure. That was definitely the hardest thing, is getting in there and having that and sitting in front of us of how are we going to do this and how can we prepare ourselves for this. So really our first week, and maybe even more like even the first 2 weeks, we just spent our time learning about the community, learning from the people, and just trying to pull out of them what's important for their own community moving forward. Essentially, the plan, like, it did have a lot of our own ideas, but it was really just taking what they already knew they needed to do and putting it somewhere and giving it a direction and giving them steps to go somewhere with it. Is what was so important. So it was really hard initially, and seemed like a daunting task to do, but really it was just, how could we find a way to pull out from this community and learn from them about how to make their own community better? Because realistically, obviously, they know so much more about it than us, because it is their town and they have so much passion for it. So it was really just finding a way to pull that information from them, putting it together, adding our own outside perspective, and giving that a direction that they can follow.
I wanted to speak up and just point out, if your lead mentor, Jared, was here, he shared something on our visit about how the first interns, RFI interns they had back in 2015, came to the community and physically infused and positivity and kind of lit the fire of volunteerism and pride within the community. But Jared did point out that he thought Trenton and Trevor took that just a whole nother leap forward with their planning and they got to know what the community is today. And he thought you folks just really just lit up the future for them, and he was very, very happy with the plan. But I thought just the follow-up, you did a very different job than the interns back 4 years ago, but was very welcome. So thank you very much.
Yeah,
Thank you.
What?
Did you want to answer Chuck's question?
Are we out of time? Or?
All right. Thank you so much, both of you. Great job.